think she's amazing. She's a badass. She's incredible. She's a softie. She's a crybaby. She's all these multiple things, right? So yeah, that's me. You have one specific personality. You have like that one, and it's like there's no dealing with. There's no willing and dealing. You're hardcore, and I think that you think you're loving, you're patient, you're all these things. I'm like, have you seen yourself?
All right. Okay. All right. Welcome to another episode of Do the Work podcast. I'm your host, AZ Araujo, along with
Carla Araujo.
Miss Carla Araujo, and we got a very interesting topic today. I think this might get a little out of hand because I think we both have stories.
Yeah. You have your story and I have mine.
Yeah, I do. And typically mine's always right, but I just don't let you know all the time.
No, that's in your opinion. So we'll see how the audience sees it.
Okay.
Because you never know. You know, I'm obviously getting some women are like, oh man, I feel that. Some men are like, yeah, you know.
I gotta admit something. So, you're a little irrational sometimes.
Okay, well that's your story. That's the way you see it.
Okay.
But according to, if you saw the photo, like that look you give me, that everyone that what we just put out there, that's the look. That's the look.
Yeah.
Even the crew here was like, yeah, that's a classic look. That's the look you give me.
What look is that?
Like your eyes go kind of droop down, like if I'm giving you this type of migraine or something.
Like I'm about to pass out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty common look.
And my look is like, pay attention to me. Like, you know.
Yeah, you're a little aggressive.
I demand attention.
You do. Lots of it.
I do.
Like to a point where I'm
But
like,
that's just seeing it one way. But when it goes the other way, I'm just like, give me some space. Give me some room.
Right? I'm not overwhelmed.
That's what you think, though.
Okay.
But if you bring a stranger into our household, you know, it's kind of like them seeing what actually the truth is. Because your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth.
All right. Well, that brings us to the topic. You're not listening. So did you know that those words are very common in relationships, especially as, you know, you and I were going back and forth here. You're not listening. Let me finish. That's not what I said. Mm-hmm. And of course, I love you. That's always, you know, a common thing. But, you know, as I was you know, doing a little research about, you know, not listening. Yeah, those items. You're not listening. Let me finish. That's not what I said. Like, that's not what I said is very common anytime we have a dispute or a disagreement. Mm-hmm. Because I interpreted a certain way you said it with a certain look and a certain tone. Right? And you interpret it as like, oh, AZ, will you please go do this? I'm like, no, that's not how you said it.
And you see it, it's like kind of one of those things where I'm like, hey, can you help me out here? You know, like it's the way you said it. I'm like, I said, can you please help me out here? Or please help me? Or I'm using the word
I think
please.
It's your tone.
But it's a tone. But again, that's how you met me. So I don't know. When you first met me, it was like the voice of like, I want to get married.
It was the voice of angels.
Well, it was the voice of angels, yes, because I want to get married. I want you to like me. And so I'm always like, you know, like a little princess.
I was bamboozled.
Right, you know, but likewise, because I didn't know you were impatient. I didn't know you were impatient. I didn't know you were grouchy. I didn't know that you know, there's certain things about you that I
didn't know you had 100 personalities. That was my fault.
Well, I only showed you one personality. So on that, I have to tell you, I apologize for that multiple times.
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. I'm sorry about that. Like you didn't realize I had these many. Honestly, the other personalities were like hidden, and I was like, they're not ready to come out yet. Yeah. The only way they were ready to come out is after you put a ring on my a ring on my hand.
And almost immediately.
Yeah, pretty much, because I know you were like, that's it. You ain't going nowhere.
You got a contract.
Yeah. So then I was like, the real me started coming out. So I was like, it's either you're gonna accept this or not. And luckily,
that's another topic. That's true. I mean, I think you know, during that courting period,
right?
You know, we're very different people because if people can see their futures, right, of what they're really gonna have to deal with 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, they would probably think twice. Right. But because we are on our best behavior, showcasing our best, you know, attributes, we don't catch that right away. But there's always indicators,
right?
You knew how impatient I was.
It's kind of one of those things when women always talk about their spouses cheating on them or like being rude and mean and yelling and impatient. I'm like, you didn't see that at the beginning? And it's like, well, no, he changed. Like, he didn't change. Nobody changes. It's just the fact that you didn't see that personality.
Yeah, because you were too in love.
You were too in love.
The hormones were all over the place, right? Juices were flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of those things. So yeah, I had multiple personalities, and I own every single one of them. I love her. I think she's amazing. She's a badass. She's incredible. She's a softie. She's a crybaby. She's all these multiple things, right? So yeah, that's me. You have one specific personality. You have like that one, and it's like there's no dealing with. There's no willing and dealing. You're hardcore. And I think that you think you're loving, you're patient, you're all these things. I'm like, have you seen yourself? And so when people hear my story and they hear AZ, they're like, man, I feel bad for AZ. Carla's hard. Like, and I'm like, anybody feel bad for me? I mean, you guys don't really know who AZ
well,
is.
the reason
that's kind of what I want to say,
the reason we record these podcasts and on video is just in case we ever end up in the divorce court.
Yeah.
I have good support from my case.
I believe I have great support too, because some women are like, yeah, like I go through that too, But again, it can, however you want to see it. So I hope that if we don't go through a divorce, but if we do, I'm sure we have a ton of backup.
Yeah, we do.
We have a lot of support back there. Our court would be full of people, of supporters. AZ's side and Carla's side. Like when you get married, one side and the other.
It's funny. I don't see divorce in our future, which is insane. Before it was a real option, but now it's like, you're my homie. Even though you're a little nutty sometimes, you're a little crazy. I gotta admit that.
The reason why, is because now we've learned to accept each other.
Yeah, you know what? That's
all of
the
us.
reality.
You've learned to accept all my personalities.
Yes.
I've learned to accept you and have a little bit more patience for you. And, at the end of the day, it's like...
No, you're right. Because I was more, I think there was more disagreements when I try to put you in a, box of what I think you should be.
Yes, I think you did try to put me in a box. Yes. But I also think that because I threw... that I guess that a curve on you that you're like, I didn't realize this Carla existed or that Carla or that Carla. It was
a beast.
Yeah, it was pretty much like in your face.
Yeah, for a while there, you had a tough time just dealing with the pressures that I brought onto our family, and it shut you down. And once you realize how powerful you were, it just escalated every aspect of our lives. I had to learn how to deal with the new Carla, the woman Carla, because for many years I dealt with young girl Carla. This is something we've talked about before. We met at 19, 20 years old. Mm-hmm. You're a kid. I was a kid, and in relationships, we always revert back to those days.
Right.
Like we got stuck emotionally and understanding and problem solving wise at that age where we met. Mm-hmm. So in 1920, the reason we created a lot of chaos in our early 30s was because I was still looking at you like you were this, naive 19-year-old.
Right.
And likewise, you were treating me like I'm some, dumb kid.
Yeah.
And in reality, we've grown as very powerful individuals. You're a very strong, powerful woman, and I've grown into my own skin as well as a powerful man. And now that we look at each other with that respect, now it's like, okay, it's a different level.
Right.
But we still have our problems, and a lot of it has to do with listening.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I thought I was the only one that had an issue with listening, but you also have a problem with listening. Not as much as I do, I think. I do zone out quickly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for noticing that.
I do.
And that's one thing that I have a ton of support, people who actually know you.
Yeah.
That you do zone out.
It's the phone.
And it's the phone.
Yeah, it's the phone. And also just like I'm in my own thoughts.
But it's not even the phone. It's not even the phone. There's sometimes the phone's not even near you.
No,
and I'll be talking to you. And I'm like, are you even listening? But it's kind of funny because we'll be in a crowd, we'll be in a group or at dinner, and we'll be in a conversation, and they're strictly talking to you.
Yeah, and I'll zone out.
And suddenly you'll zone out, and I feel so embarrassed.
You know what it is?
That I'm like, and I'll kind of jump into the conversation because I get so embarrassed that I can see your look of zoning out. And I know the other person sees it too.
I know, and sometimes I catch myself zoning out. I'm like, dude, somebody's talking to you, and then I'll snap right back into it and be like, oh, okay, what were we talking about? But I think I know why. I'm a very analytical type of person, right?
Thank goodness. I thought you were just bored with my conversations.
Well, yeah, sometimes they are boring.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, God.
And most often they already know what you're going to say. And that's another thing, like people that are in relationships, like the more you know a person, you already know what they're going to say. You already know what they're going to say. So I was like, all right, I can zone around, still be in the conversation, be like, really? Well,
that is so wrong and so true.
It's so true.
Because you know what they're going to say already.
You're going to know. So it's like, you don't need that much attention. But when it's a brand new relationship, I don't know nothing about you. So I'm like, yeah. What else?
And then all of a sudden, years go by, I'm like, what happened? All attention was on me. You're asking me a ton of questions.
But that's in a relationship with siblings. You already know, especially when you're close to somebody, you already know. That's right.
It's not just in a marriage. It's a friendship. And your siblings, the closeness, of it. Yeah, family. Yeah. Like you already know what the person's going to say.
Yeah.
Right.
So where was I going? What point was I making? Anyway.
About zoning off.
Zoning off. So like I just did right now.
Yeah.
So I think whenever you speak, and this is something that I don't think and I think you're starting to capture how my mind works or trying to understand how my mind works.
Right.
Because sometimes we'll have these deep conversations, right? And then all of a sudden, you will see me zoning out and get my phone, but I'm making notes. Because that little thought or that thing that you said all of a sudden spawned a whole new level of ideas, topics, and things that I want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I think you have a little bit more patience now because you know I am listening at a very deep level to a point where it's resonated to me to the core that I don't want to forget. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do zone out. But another reason it is, because I kind of know what you're going to say. And sometimes, like, when you talk, you repeat the same thing, like 5 times.
Yeah.
So I already heard it the first time. So the next 4, I'll just zone out.
Kind of goes the same thing, though.
Okay.
When you come in and you have this great idea, you know, business, personal, whatever
I'm
kind
excited
of idea,
about
you're
it.
excited about it. I'm like, how many times are you going to tell me this great idea? It's becoming ridiculous now. I heard it over and over and over. I'm just not as excited as you are.
Yeah. I'll take offense to it, right?
Yeah.
Be like,
and
oh, you don't care.
And you're like, you don't care. You know, this is part of this. This is part of that. You're not listening to me. I'm like, no, you just repeated the idea 20 times. I already know where it's going. It's kind of one of those things, you know?
And that's such a good point. And that's one of the consequences of not listening. Because I don't like the way that feels, you know, because I'm so excited. I'm here and you're not really buying into that. Even though, I, you know, the first time I said it to you, you were excited about it. But after a while, you're just like, you know, like I'm about to make a purchase on something. And I was really excited about it. You're like,
Yeah.
Because you already heard me talking about it last week.
And you stay on this high and you don't come down until it's actually in your hands.
And then I come down.
And then you come down. And then so I get excited when it's there and I'm like, great, this is awesome. But you get excited, I mean, on this high until it comes down. And it's just like, okay. But now when you're down, now I'm excited. So it kind of, our attitudes sharing the exact same. It's really, really hard. I guess our personalities, our excitement for something, it's hard to come together with it just because we're 2 different people and the excitement, it comes at different times.
Yeah, it does come at different times. And
the other person gets mad almost. They're
we
like, why aren't you
distant.
excited? It's like, they become distant. You don't care. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I read. It says, when we don't carefully listen to one another's thoughts and feelings, our spouses will begin to feel unimportant and rejected. If this becomes a regular habit, our partners will shut down and stop sharing so they don't feel the pain of rejection anymore.
It's kind of one of these things, AZ. So you have your routine in the morning, I have my routine in the morning. I think we wake up a very similar time now that you're training for the Ironman, so we kind of wake up at the same time kind of. So I'm always in a rush. I just have a really high energy, so I'm like, I feel like, you know, I multitask when actually I hear that's not even possible to multitask, you know, but in my brain I am. So I'm going back and forth everywhere.
You know, it's funny when you first said that, and when I told you, hey, it's not possible for anyone to multitask. And then you said, who said that? Some dumb man?
Men come up with that because I know us women, we multitask. So don't let a man tell you different.
Yeah. Some dumb man? I was like,
some dumb man because in our brains, we do multitask.
Touché.
And we get things done. So it's kind of one of those things. I'm in a rush. I'm rushing everywhere and I'm in a hurry. And all of a sudden, I'm into the restroom, I don't know, getting ready, putting my makeup on. I'm just trying to hurry up. You knock on the door, and you're like, can I have my hug? And I'm like, damn, I don't have time for this damn hug. Like, I don't want to hug you right now.
Don't make it act like I'm over here.
Hold on. I want to tell you
something.
Hold on. Let me finish up. I'm not making you less of a man. You're still a man. You're still strong.
Like the way you said, like right now.
Hold on.
What I'm hearing is very different.
Oh, my gosh. I kill your confidence right there? Well, like, I didn't take no man.
You make me act like.
Here, take your man part back. Here, take it. There, it's here.
Thank you.
I didn't take it from you.
My balls back.
All right, there you are. So all I'm saying is that you are so sweet. There we go. You're so sweet. You go and knock on the door and you're like, hey, can I have my morning hug? I'm going to go for my, 30-mile ride or run or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. So I give you your hug and you hug me forever, which seems in my world, it's like a forever hug. I'm like, damn, pat me on the back and I'll be all right with that. Just pat me on the back. And so
pat me on the head.
Just pat me on the head.
Just give me a high five, a dab.
Yeah.
Give me a pound.
Yeah, and go on your way. But you hug me forever. And you go on your way, right? So
that's not the way it happens.
Yeah, well, in my head it does because it takes forever.
Okay.
It takes forever. So I'm just like, hurry up.
But what happens at the moment I don't go?
But hold on. That's what I'm talking about. Because you just read something. Okay. You just read something, right? Yeah. So after a while, when you feel that energy that I'm giving you, that rush energy, you're just like, don't knock on the door anymore. So it started to happen like that. So I started to get hurt. I'm like, well, where's my hugs? Yeah. You shouldn't leave the house without kissing my forehead and hugging me. That is the norm. Like, that's what you do. So after a while, I felt ignored. I felt shut down. But then I didn't take in consideration how you felt with my energy. Like, hurry it up. I got to, so pat me on the back. Get it going with your hug kind of deal, right? But when it's gone, right? That's kind of the saying. When it's gone, you miss it, right? So it's kind of one thing. So I started getting like a little hurt. Like, where's my hug at? You don't care about me anymore, right? You're too busy to hug me. You're too busy. You're, Ironman training, whatever. But I didn't take in consideration like the
energy you were giving me when I was doing
so
those
it goes both ways.
Yeah,
the resentment, the anger that we got there, right?
Yeah, because after a while I'm like, oh, okay, she's gonna be too busy, and I don't like that. The last thing I want is it's early in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then feeling resentful towards you.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what it says. It becomes distant. And I just want to avoid it altogether. And it says here, our partners will shut down sharing so much that they don't feel the pain of rejection anymore.
Right.
It's not necessarily the pain. I just don't want to be in that space where
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm trying to give her
Right.
a hug, trying
So
to
we
show her
did.
some love. And
we
she
did
doesn't.
separate
Yeah.
for
Yeah, we did.
almost a year. We were like, oh, we don't need to do that anymore, right? We don't need to do that. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like, it didn't make us or break us. It just kind of like, we don't need to do that
Yeah.
anymore. And I just remember, I think you or I kind of went back and like, hey, can we start all over again?
Yeah.
This was like a year later, right? When
yeah.
we realized the hugs and kisses and the morning goodbyes were missing. And I know people out there are like, oh, we never leave the house without saying goodbye, but genuinely saying goodbye.
And-
it's not like the norm of like,
Hey, I love you.
I love you, bye, and then kissing him on the forehead.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, AZ genuinely was hugging me tight.
Yeah.
And he would even pray for me, 5-minute prayer. And my anxiety and anxious, like, I gotta go. Like, you genuinely took your time to hug me, say a prayer with me, and just tell me how incredible I am and all these positive things. And I didn't take into consideration, like, he genuinely was not giving me my morning forehead kiss or my hug really quick. Oh, have a great day, honey. It wasn't one of those things. I don't think you guys understand. It was like a genuinely 30-minute prayer, hug. And it was just like, wow, this is gone now because I made him feel unwanted.
Yeah.
And so now I feel unwanted because I'm like, where's my genuine hug? Because you started coming back with a little kiss and a little hug and okay, Carla, bye. But you genuinely stopped doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it wasn't 30 minutes, but yeah.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I do. It felt,
It felt like a really long, awesome, genuine prayer,
and
hugs,
I think that's
and
important.
kisses. Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
important. I
Yeah.
mean, that physical contact, outside of the bedroom, I think it's important. I think we both discussed that we need to feel that bond. Like if you notice, people that have met themselves for the first time, you can tell they just met.
Right.
They're holding hands, they're hugging, they're
You know
looking into
what?
each other's eyes.
What I've noticed about you, AZ, is like when you were waking up, and you still do this. It's kind of like you're giving this positive affirmations to your children.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of did that with me.
Yeah.
You were giving me these positive affirmations, and you were generally giving it to me in sentences. It wasn't like a word. It was like a sentence, like, remember who you are, remember this, remember that. And I'm just like, yeah. And that just kind of faded away because, again, it was just like, I got to go. I don't need to hear it. I got to go because I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, and then I started turning where it was like, I felt, resentment because you weren't giving that to me.
Yeah.
So it took about a year to say, hey, can we start all over again?
Yes, it did.
And that's kind of where the spouses failed. They failed to communicate to say, hey, can we start from scratch? Can you really, really start from scratch?
And it's funny how that happens, where it's bond and then all of a sudden it becomes distance. And again, I think we're just trying to avoid any ill will towards another person. So if you don't bring it up, you don't get rejected or you don't get the energy you don't want and you don't have to deal with it.
Right.
And that's the easy way. And what that does is actually destroys the foundation of a relationship, because it is about a physical, emotional, and a mental connection, right?
Right.
And so that was also a change we've recently done is to really take the time to give each other that energetic hug in the morning to really give ourselves a couple minutes. And I know we're both really busy, but we've carved out that little time in order for us to be like, hey, I'm here.
Right.
And that physical connection, I think, is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
The next thing, when there is not enough communication, right? If there's not enough listening, spouses can lose their desire for all intimacies, right? For the things that go, behind the scenes, physically, that kind of goes off by the wayside. It really does. Like when we're not connected, we don't communicate. We don't connect in the bedroom.
Well, there's no steam in the bedroom. Like, what's the point? Everything's so cold.
Yeah.
So the oven isn't, on.
And I've noticed that. And it's not.
It's just cold.
It's
like cold turkey in the bed. It's like there's nothing there, only because we hold like this. Even though we tell each other, we tell one another, everything's okay. I'm not angry. I'm fine. At the end of the day, no, it's not, because we don't really want to tell our feelings because of the other person's probably going to throw it in our face and say, well, I've tried. And it's like, well, I'm obviously coming to you to start from scratch, not for you to throw me in my face on what we were going through, right? But no, it really is hard to connect with your spouse when your spouse is you're just
like when I come home and not talk to you, I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
And then later on that night, I'm like, hey, what's up, baby? I'm tapping your butt or something.
Yeah,
and like,
really?
What?
Tapping my butt, really?
That's how I get things going. That's like my sign to you, I love tap.
Like, hey,
Hey.
hey.
So grab a little pinch here and there. That's my sign. And then you're like, "Ooh." I could tell when I haven't communicated. I'm like,
Like
God
that one
damn
time I
it.
punched you in the stomach.
I didn't, you gave me a good little,
That's right.
it was like an elbow to the stomach.
That's right. Because I just did not want to.
And I know
it was
what
cold.
leads. I know
The
what
oven
leads
was
to.
not on. It was completely cold.
I know what leads to good loving.
Yeah.
And that is when I'm listening, when I'm communicating.
Yep.
Sometimes I forget and I just expect it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm tired. I don't want to listen sometimes, but I still want, you know, I still
Yeah.
want sex in the
Yeah.
bedroom, you
Yeah.
know. But
and it goes both ways.
it does.
I mean, you know, like
yeah, because sometimes when
I'm like this grouchy individual or like just
I don't wanna be
not,
around you.
you don't want to be around me.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is not attractive, you know, because you see the true person. It's like if you were on a date or you're first dating, you don't really see how that person's acting. And so you only see them on the hot date.
Yep.
You don't really see the
all
reality.
dolled up.
All dolled up. Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden the personality change and they're happy, you know. But when you're actually living with a person and you deal with them at work, in the office, we carpool a lot, all these things. And then you go home with them and they have like this face of like dead, of like grouchiness, the energy. It's like the last thing you want is to go and get into it.
You know, and
Yeah.
I've discovered that. And some of the things that I do, and I'm going to give my secrets away here, is making sure that I communicate throughout the day, not just, you know, when, you know, even here at the office, even though our office is just across the hallway, is if I have a game plan, if I strategize it correctly, right?
It's all about strategy.
It is
really
about strategy.
It is. If you don't got it down,
You got to wine and dine them, you know.
Yeah,
That's a whole.
strategy.
That's a phrase that's
Yeah.
used because it works. Wine and dine and
Yeah.
and communicate and, you know, and do all these other things. So what I do is I send text messages through you throughout the day, like, you know, flirting messages, how good you look. I give you compliments throughout the day.
And sometimes I don't take them well.
No, you don't. 'Cause
Sometimes I get
you're
annoyed
probably
with
pissed,
them.
Yeah, because you're pissed off from the day before or the
Yeah.
week before. You got a lot on your mind.
Yeah.
But I know I increase my odds. I
Yeah,
increase
yeah,
my
yeah. There
odds
you go,
when
there
I
you
court
go.
you.
Yeah,
When I court
yeah,
you.
yeah,
right?
that's better. That's good. That's good.
And I think that's important because for me just to, you know, not call you all day, be a jerk when I do call you, like, hey, I'm busy, I'll call you back, and then I forget to call you back, and then I come home and I'm on my phone, and then later on, again, I'm tapping that, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course you're not going to want to.
Yeah, no.
Of course you're not going to want to.
It's all about strategy.
But
I'm
now,
telling you.
yeah, it's all strategy. I already sent you a couple texts. You know what I planned tonight. You know what I got planned tonight.
Yeah, but then again, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny because you strategize it really well, and then you hit me with a big bang. And I'm like, why did you have to be a jerk?
Oh, yeah,
Why
yeah.
do you have to be a jerk?
Dude, I hate when I do that. And I'm about to say something. I'm like, no, hold back.
Because
hold back.
I'm not the person that's like, oh, okay, everything's okay. It's like, no.
No, you'll hold on to it.
You know, I'm gonna hold on to it, and we're gonna talk about this later. And later means like the next day.
Yeah, and
so
which
you have to start
ruins
all
my
over.
mind.
You have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
You
I
have to start from
hate when I
scratch.
do that.
Yeah.
Like I'm at the finish
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Like all I have to do is just keep my mouth shut.
It doesn't work that way.
And then I say something.
Yeah, it's the kind of woman I am.
No, that's
Yeah, and I keep you on your toes. So you know you got to be a little better. Your strategy kind of sucks a little bit. You got to work on that strategy.
Yeah, the approach.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You know, and same thing goes over here on my end. Like sometimes I just don't want to deal with it. Sometimes I don't think you realize like your attitude, your look, you ignoring me, not answering my calls when I'm calling you. And so and you can come up with like, I'm busy, I'm this, and I'm like, pick up my calls when I call you. Yeah. But yeah, it goes both ways. Like sometimes I'll do it to you and you get angry.
Yeah,
and,
I'm like, what's going on?
No, I get it. But yeah, your strategy needs to be a little bit better. So I don't know if your advice is really good. I think it's great, but you need to work on it.
Yeah, there's a smile on my face. I'm pretty satisfied.
Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
You know, it's all strategy.
So is there? You got another one?
I do have another one.
Tell me.
Okay.
Talk to me.
Lack of communication, lack of listening, lack of communication, lack of listening. Your spouses can shift their focus to other relationships. So true.
Yep.
Right? I mean, how many times do we hear that? Yeah, you were never around. Hey, you never listened to me. So they go find somebody, usually a coworker of some sort. You know, they start talking about all their problems to this coworker, and he starts talking about all his problems to that coworker.
And all of a sudden it's a connection.
And all of a sudden they got a hotel room in the
I
middle
have
of
to
the day.
tell you. I'm going to tell you something that I got caught up. I'm going to tell you something. So I know how it happens. I know how this bond and affairs happen.
Yep.
And not everybody, that's to which their own, and everybody has their problems and issues on that. But I don't, it's not going to go into that, affairs
realm,
and stuff.
affairs, yeah.
But
We'll
I do want to tell you, we'll talk about affairs another day. But I do want to tell you how to actually, I can see this happening. So check this out. So we are getting our, anyway, we're on a construction site. And I can't tell the details because, I don't want to put names out there. But we were on a construction site, and I think I was arguing with you because a big mess was happening in the construction. And I'm just like, I'm so irritated with you. And I think we had a huge argument. We didn't talk for 2 days. That morning, you left early. I had to deal with the contractor. The contractor was pretty attractive.
Yeah.
I got to admit. He was
Good-looking
attractive.
contractor.
He was a good-looking contractor. I was like, okay. apparently I was pulling out, and he's like, hold on, I have a couple of questions. And I'm like, cool. So he's like trying to walk to the construction site, and you were gone already. So I'm in the loop 100%. So I know what's going on kind of deal. So him and I are talking, and suddenly I said, so how's it going? How's it going with everything? And I meant like plan wise, construction wise. And he's like, well, my problems at home kind of deal. And I'm like, whoa. So he's talking about his problems at home. And I'm like, well, I'm about going through some emotional stuff right now too, because that same thing, so we started communicating.
Yeah, you started connecting.
Yeah, because we had very almost similar problems.
Yes.
Lack of communication with our spouses,
yeah,
right?
Right.
So all of a sudden we take 2 steps forward, and then we feel this bond, and we're like communicating really well. And I'm like, really, you're going through that? I'm going through that. So then within seconds, like of that bond, I was like, oh shit, I see how affairs happen. Yeah. So then I was like, because all is glaring in his eyes, like, really, you go through that? I go through that. So, and then he's like, well, tell me, Carla, how do you deal with it? So we're just all of a sudden all of a sudden, we're a little too close.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be late for work. I got to go. Because in my mind,
but that's
the only reason I'm like, because I'm so, I guess in my own brain, I know how this, right? And the reality is we hold podcasts, you and I communicate, we talk about subjects. So suddenly, very well aware of what was not going to happen, but well aware how it could happen.
How it could happen.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. I'm really well aware of it. So I'm like, this is how affairs happen.
Yeah, because what ends up happening, right? It happens with coworkers. It's your frustrations, and then this other coworker with her frustrations. You happen to go to lunch, and all of a sudden you have like this little, conversation at work, a relationship at work, and then that leads to other things, and it's like, you're setting yourself up for your marriage to fail at that point, right? And if that's the case, it's got to be a decision. Like you got to get out of your marriage if you want something different, right? If you want to do something different, but to complain to somebody else, it's only going to lead down that path,
right?
And it always seems greener on the other side.
Well,
it always does.
It is. And I got in the car. I'm like, I gotta go. I'm late for work, and suddenly my attitude changed. I have to go to work. I gotta go. Let me know what you need. Text us, whatever. Blah 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 blah. And then I just kind of took off. And of course, I started taking my notes for the next podcast. I'm like, this is the content right here. Yeah. So I get in my car and I'm like, how in the heck did I weekend? Like that has never happened to me, right? Yeah. How in the heck did I weekend in that moment? And I got to tell you, because he was an attractive man. He honestly was an attractive man. And so in his voice and everything, we just bonded. But I was like, how did that happen? How does this happen? So of course, like I said, right when I got to the office, I started journaling my content, started writing it up because I needed this is a great content, right, on podcast. But I honestly was like, I took such appreciation for my husband. I'm like, the grass is never greener on the other end. Mm-hmm. I love my spouse. What am I arguing? And I remember pulling in. I remember telling you, hey, I just know how affairs happen. So I started talking to you about it. And you're like, and it's funny because you were never, ever, one part of you was like, well, what'd you say to him? You never. I was just like, how in the heck did I catch myself? And I will never do this again. I was very forward with you. Complain about my marriage to another man, period, or another woman. Yeah. So anything I say, it's all here on blast, right? So I'm never complaining.
That's another thing. Like,
never complain about your marriage to not a man, just any individual, period.
It brings more negativity. It brings the wrong type of advice oftentimes.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we did is we learn not to make our burdens the burdens on our parents, on our friends, on our, we discuss it. We work it out. We decide.
But I have to tell you, AZ, I have never done that. It's the way he approached it that got me. Yeah. And it caught me off guard because I'm like, why would I do that? Mm-hmm. There was something there obviously missing. Like, this is not okay. Mm-hmm. So I just went in. And like I said, when I got here, I was like, that was not okay on how this went down. But it's never has that happened to me. So yeah, when people get caught off guard, that's how affairs happen.
Yeah,
so be aware.
Spouses can shift their focus to other relationships. And I'm going to go ahead and read here what I wrote down. When our unlistened to spouse don't feel connected to us, they will ultimately seek out connecting with others who are willing to bond with them. When they are receiving affirmation from us, they will turn to others to fill that need. That may mean they share more of what's going on in their lives with their friends or coworkers instead of you, or someone else altogether. Or this may mean they look for reasons to stay away from home to spend time with those that are willing to and eager to listen. When we stop listening to our spouses, we are setting the stage for an emotional affair, emotional, physical, for other affairs. But how easy is it, right? Because I know for a while when I'm not connected, like sometimes I'm like, oh, you didn't tell me that happened, but you told your brother, you told your mom. How come you didn't tell me?
Right.
And it's because you built that outside. It doesn't necessarily have to be an affair. It could be just more of a bond with somebody
with
outside
somebody else, right.
of the marriage.
Right.
When we got married, we assume that we're
right.
Best friends and we tell each other everything. But sometimes I'll catch you in a conversation. I'm like, how come you didn't tell me about that? Well, I can see why. I'll probably zone you out or I'll be on my phone and I've caught myself there. But, you're not listening is something that we have to really pay attention to. That phrase we have to pay attention to because it can lead to other things like we just discussed. You can become distant. You can lose physical intimacy, emotional, mental intimacy. And also, they can look for relationships outside of the marriage.
It's kind of like one of those things, but I'm going to take this way back. I'm going to take this way back years ago. This is when I worked from home.
Yeah.
So I was like 70% in the business, like 40% of the business. I stayed at home and I worked from home with the kids. You were more connected with the public. You were out there marketing. I was connected with the inside of the business, the background of it, all the paperwork, all the financials, and you were on the front end of it. And so you were always connected with the public. So you coming home talking to me about, social media, marketing, sales was really hard only because I was so distanced from you in that conversation. Mm-hmm. So you would go out to these happy hours to network. And I would never be there with you, obviously, because that was obviously through my depression, anxiety. I didn't like that kind of networking, and you did. It was such a disconnect. So you were more connected with the public, I would say, like complete strangers, I felt.
Yes.
And you weren't with me. So you would come home.
Like I would have my inside jokes and relationships.
Right. And you would come home and you would talk to me about wife stuff and paperwork stuff and everything else. But all this other end, you made me feel like I was so distanced from you because the people that you did know on the outside of it, that was your bond, not with me.
Right.
Versus, you talking to me as to how important the networking is a part of the business, right? And the sales and everything else. But I felt like the bond was so disconnected. It was just disconnected. So you always would just go out, have a drink or two, and go network. And it was like, where's our connection? So it's kind of very similar.
Yeah, we went through a rough patch. And a lot of it was, just a lack of attention, lack of... not listening. And it led us down this pretty dark path. But we were able to bounce back.
Right.
We were able to see the ills of our ways. We made a choice. Do we still want to be in this relationship? One of the things we constantly talk about is we had to end our relationship. We had to end it of what it was. We had to end all the resentment, all the history. We had to talk about everything and put it up front and start accepting for who we were today. And I think we're a little bit more experienced, wiser.
Right.
There's a lot of wisdom with what we have now. And we understand that there's a way to create a successful marriage and still run a successful business, to still be best friends, to still be connected. And do we falter from time to time? Absolutely. It happens, right?
Yeah.
It happens where, sometimes we just need some space from each other.
I think a healthy marriage... It has to happen.
Yeah, it has to happen. There's got to be collision.
Yep. In a healthy marriage, you must have it.
If there's no arguments, if everything's always
and I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Our relationship is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, we
no
don't argue.
arguments, and it's good.
Someone is holding back.
Someone in that relationship, yeah.
Someone is a doormat.
And is definitely a doormat. And is gonna blow up eventually. Or
at some point.
They might stay
just bite their tongue the entire life.
The entire life, and stay in that marriage as a doormat.
There is no biting tongue on this side for
no,
you.
Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not. I love to share my life, my story.
Your opinions.
My opinions, everything. Only because I think it's very helpful in marriages. How we've been together for 20-some years, 22, 23 years.
Yeah.
It's obviously we had to come to collision constantly.
Constant collisions. And now we don't take offense. When we're not in the best of terms, we know we just need a little bit of space.
Yep.
We're not offended to a point where, we take that and it bleeds into other aspects of our lives, at least not to the magnitude it used to before. We just know we're going to come back to around once we've settled, once we've processed it, once we understand that we can talk to each other in a very respectful manner, and we're ready to resolve it. And sometimes I'm ready to resolve it before you are, and sometimes it's vice versa.
Yep.
But we always come to this conclusion that it has to do something along the lines of the communication aspect, the listening aspect, and love, respect, and appreciation. Mm-hmm. And I always say this, like, whenever there is a disagreement, whenever there is a fight, one of three things happen. You either didn't show enough love, you lost some respect, or you didn't give her respect, or there wasn't enough appreciation.
Yeah. Yep.
So one of those things, or if not all three things, right? It happens from time to time. But I know when we're well connected, I've given you lots of love, lots of appreciation, lots of respect.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think that's about it for our podcast today, Carla. But I am listening. I am. And sometimes I'm just inspired by your words, baby. I'm just inspired by you.
And you know what? I don't know why this came to my thought. I don't know why it came to my mind where it says pick your battles in an argument. I'm not for that. It's like pick your battles in an argument. I think picking your battles it's just really
conceding.
Yeah. It's like there should be no pick your battles. It should be give your opinion, voice your voice every single time you're uncomfortable and you need to say something.
Yeah, because what happens is you hold on to that.
Right.
And then it just becomes a bigger issue down the line.
So I've heard that all the time. Pick your battles. It's like, it's not about picking your battles. Say something right there and then. Even if you're the only one always feeling like you're on the battlefield and the other person's like, I don't like to fight. It's like, then stay at the battlefield.
Yeah.
Because the only thing about that is you are coming out to being the true you and your spouse has to meet you halfway.
Yes.
There is no pick your battles. This argument is not that big. But the next one, I promise you, without you even not knowing, you're going to bring that battle into that one.
You have the cannons ready.
Yeah.
That's good advice. And we got here. Oh, we're going to go read a couple of comments here. Rudy, what's going on, my brother? These conversations that you two are always so open to having, just sharing your truth is one of the biggest reasons why I knew that this is where I needed to be and who I needed to surround myself with. I appreciate you guys immensely. Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate that.
We love you, Rudy.
And I mean, it's just, we've been married now. It's going to be 18 years in October. So we've been through a few things. We've seen some things. We've been there, and we're still learning from each other. But the level of our connection is far greater than it's ever been, and it takes a lot of work. But it's not conceding. It's not compromising. It's not holding back, picking your battles. It's being your true self and having to deal with the things that come up at that moment, not holding on to them with resentment, where you bring it all on the table on one bad day.
And it's not about picking your battles.
Yeah.
Just go all in.
Go all in. Go all in. And resolve it then. All right, guys. Well, we want to thank you again for joining us for another episode of Do the Work Podcast. As a reminder, you can listen to the podcast on Do the Work Podcast on your favorite service provider. And again, don't forget to share it with someone that you think could benefit from this. Like it, comment on it, and rate us. So thank you again. And that's all we have, right, Carla?
That's it.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Do the Work Podcast, brought to you by Do the Work Coaching and Consulting. You can watch this and other episodes by subscribing to our channel on YouTube or by visiting our site directly at dothework.com. For our audio listeners, you can listen to this episode and many others on your preferred podcast provider. Finally, to stay up to date on the next time we will be going live, follow us on Facebook and Instagram.